Looking back on it now, I can clearly see that all the major signs were there. I didn't see them, but they were there. It was only when miracles began to happen that I realized that something had happened. The first event happened just after our third anniversary. I completely missed it at the time, but later when I looked back on it, it was crystal clear in hindsight. It spun around and hit me hard on the head. What caused all this? You may ask, what was the single event that led to me learning about this? My wife's new hairstyle, to be exact. When she cut her hair like that and styled it like that, it surprised me. Megan had never really cut her hair, and until that day it had always been quite long. I loved her long hair and stroked it many times, hoping to let her know that I truly loved her hair just the way it was. Over the next few weeks, I realized that her hair change taught me a lot about triplets. Why? Megan is one of identical triplets. Note, not just triplets, but identical triplets. So identical that in their early years, their parents marked the soles of their feet with the letters A, B, and C with a felt-tip pen. Why not the letters of their names? Because all their names started with the same letter. There was no other way to tell them apart. After a while, I think they just gave up and hoped for the best. Back to the hair. Megan returned home with a new look that Friday night after Thanksgiving, having spent the day shopping with her sisters on the biggest shopping day of the year. The first thing I noticed was her hair. She cut and styled her hair, that was obvious. But what really amazed me was how the styling made her look so sexy. So sexy that I was stunned and speechless at first. My first thought was, oh my God, is this my Megan? Damn! The silence obviously caused her some discomfort. Finally, just as she was about to say something, I found my voice. Who are you, and what did you do with my wife? I thought it would please her, as if to let her know that I was impressed by the hairstyle and all that. To my surprise, what I got was a scared look at first. Then it changed to a guilty look. For a second, I thought she would turn and run from me. I saw her struggle to control her emotions and tried not to show that I noticed her fears. Please tell me you like it, please. I know I never told you I was planning on cutting my hair and everything, but Melissa and Margot talked me into it. I'm sorry if you don't like it, but they'll grow back soon. Her words came out so quickly that they almost collided with each other. I was surprised that she cut her hair, knowing how much I liked her hair the way it was. But at the same time, I never actually said that she couldn't or shouldn't cut it if she wanted. After all, she didn't belong to me. We were just a married couple, and if she got tired of her long hair or anything like that, I figured she could make those changes on her own. I always thought she knew this, so her reaction was unexpected for me. Oh, honey, you're beautiful. Oh my God, that you look so sexy and gorgeous that I can hardly believe I'm married to you. I like it. So you're not against it? I mean, you're not mad at me, are you? God, no. Maybe surprised, but definitely not angry. You look amazing. I got a smile, but it was a weak, nervous smile, unlike her usual one. I was too caught up in contemplating my wife to really notice it at the time, but looking back, I remember it clearly. I was really worried about her initial reaction and guilty look, but I chalked it up to the sudden change and her fear that I wouldn't like it. However, later that evening, I discovered that the hair on her head was not the only one she had cut. She had an intimate hairstyle. I didn't see any razor marks, so I asked her about it. Have you shaved? No, I had electrolysis. They will never grow back, or so I was told. Quite radical, don't you think? What if you decide you don't like it? It will not happen. I think I look sexy now. Isn't it? Well, it's your body, honey, and it's sexy. I just think you should have just shaved first before making that final decision. Don't you like it? No, I like it. I guess the changes in your hair are a little shocking to me. In a good way. We had mind-blowing sex that night. It started in the bedroom and ended in our living room. Megan was sexier than ever, and I think she was more interested in her hair than she let me know. Then the next couple of days were a little awkward at times. She acted like a stranger at times, and I wondered where that came from. I applied it to her hair, and realized that it must have meant more to her than I thought. By the following Monday, everything was back to normal, and we were getting along as usual. I kept praising her hair that week, and Megan finally admitted that I wasn't lying to her about it, and admitted that I really liked her new look. The following weekend, her sisters came over for a barbecue. I learned more about the nature of identical triplets. Margot and Melissa showed up with the exact same hairstyle as Megan. I saw them both on Monday afternoon when we invited them to a barbecue, and their hair was exactly the same as Megan's before her transformation. Now each of them looked exactly the same again. If it weren't for the different clothes they were wearing, I would never have been able to tell them apart. Again. Over time, I realized that every woman, of course, has her own personality, don't get me wrong. It was just so hard to tell them apart, and now having Megan with different hair was the only benefit I wanted. Now I'm back to understanding that they will still be able to tease me. There were several ways to tell them apart, but most of them were in how they acted. For example, Melissa and Megan were more studious, always calm, and more likely to toe the line, while Margot was wild. Margot has likely gotten into trouble for something much more often than Megan or Melissa. Margot was usually the first to buy sexy swimsuits and then persuade the other two to wear them. She was more relaxed than her sisters. Melissa was smarter than everyone else and further away in college than Margot or Megan. She received her MBA, while Megan and Margot only received their bachelor's degrees. Melissa was married 2 years before Megan and I met. Margot was still single, and she loved it. It was fairly common knowledge that Margot was not looking for any permanent relationship and did not want to be tied down. For her, marriage was not something she ever wanted to do. Over the years, Megan, Melissa, and Margot were close and cared for each other very much. Their parents had problems with one thing or another from time to time, which is normal for children and parents. But in this case, the sisters stood up for each other, wearing the same clothes and not allowing it to be determined who was who. This usually resulted in them all being punished. I heard that shopping was always a challenge for them, as they wore the same sizes and, for the most part, had very similar tastes in clothes. Most stores had trouble stocking 3 items of the same size. It was quiet the weekend Melissa had the barbecue. Her husband Rick didn't show up, and I felt like there was some trouble with the girls about it. Something was happening there, but none of them wanted to talk about it in front of me. They all seemed worried. I could tell that Melissa and Rick had problems, and although we were related, Rick and I never really interacted. He acted rather stiffly towards me at times, and although I tried my best, he never warmed up to me. Consequently, we didn't communicate much at all. I didn't mind it much, but what bothered me sometimes was his attitude, as if he didn't like me at all. I never let it get to me too much, but I was still confused as to why he acted this way towards me. Despite all this, Melissa was the kind of person who didn't want the personal things in her life out in the open. Hell, all 3 of them were like that to some degree. While we were eating, Megan went into the house to get ketchup, and Melissa went with her. I figured they were having a heart-to-heart, so I just pretended to believe that's what they were doing, looking for ketchup. They were gone for about half an hour. Margot flirted with me mercilessly during this time, even trying to touch me in quiet, intimate places, such as my crotch. I played a little, but didn't let her succeed in her attempts to feel me up. It was obvious that she was trying to take my attention away from Megan and Melissa. This type of flirting on Margot's part was nothing new either. She always put on shows for me while I was dating her sister. Of course, I couldn't help it because I was sure that if I did, Megan would find out immediately. Not that I wanted this in the first place. However, when I was around her, there was always some undercurrent that made me pay close attention to myself. Not only in how I acted, but also in what I said. After a while, Melissa came out and sat at the other end of the picnic table from me and looked at me strangely. Margot was still flirting with me, and I thought maybe Melissa was worried that I was playing too much or something with her sister, so I quickly cooled off. This look lasted until the end of lunch. When her sisters left that night, Megan was worried. I could tell by the look in her eyes that there was something serious between Rick and Melissa. Knowing that sooner or later everything would come to light, I simply let Megan know that I was there for her and her sisters, no matter what. Megan was quite cool in bed that night. I had sex for the first time that week, and it took a little while to get her interested in anything. After that, she clung to me and hugged me almost possessively all night long. Then I realized that what was going on with Melissa was really very serious when Megan acted like that. Things calmed down over the next week, and by the following Saturday, Megan and I were in great shape. With Christmas shopping still high on the priority list, I knew Megan would want to go shopping with her sisters, and I wasn't at all surprised when Margot showed up and grabbed her to go out. I spent the day doing some work around the house, as it was sunny and almost warm. The unusually warm weather we had was a bonus, as I was able to refinish the front deck and spruce up the yard a bit. I built everything with my own hands and took a bit of pride in it, so every time something little went wrong or started to look less than perfect, I would worry about it until it was fixed. Later in the afternoon, I went shopping alone. At the local mall, I saw Margot's car as I walked in and hoped I wouldn't run into them while shopping. I didn't want Megan, Melissa, or Margot to know what I was getting them for Christmas. Her sisters would squeal in a second if they knew someone was going to get something better than the others. Needless to say, surprises were difficult when they were around. I saw them in the mall near the food court, standing together. Melissa was there, so apparently they all got together at some point, and they were now in the middle of a shopping trip. I quickly turned and left, heading to another shopping center a little further away. Now that I knew where they were, I knew where to go and buy them gifts. Feeling a little smug, I returned home with the gifts wrapped and found them having a cup of coffee in the kitchen. "Oh, someone was busy shopping without us. What did you bring us, honey?" Megan smiled and tried to grab the gifts. "It's none of your business, dear. You'll find out all about it on Christmas morning." "Oh, come on, Matt. Let me in on the secret. You can tell me what you have, Margot. Melissa, right?" "No. I know everything about you girls. You three have this telepathic thing, and I know that if I tell you, Megan, they will read your mind and also understand what I have in store for them. No, I won't tell you." "Telepathic? Do you mean telepathy?" "Yes, you girls have telepathy. If I wire you, you wire them, and then I'll be a pathetic gift giver. Again. This won't happen this year, not if I can help it." "God, Matt. You're no fun." Melissa smiled for the first time since we had the barbecue. I hoped that whatever was going on between her and Rick had worked out. Judging by her smile, it was so. However, I noticed that Megan seemed calmer. After the discussion of gifts, she largely kept to herself. Margot was flirty as usual, and while I was beginning to wonder about Megan's mood, she attacked me. "Hello, Matt. I love what you did with the front deck. It really looks good." "Thank you. It actually only took a few moments, nothing that a few tools couldn't fix. Speaking of tools, could you come see me tomorrow? I have some things that need fixing. I heard that you have all the necessary equipment to get me cleaned up." I could clearly see the things she wanted to put in order, and blushing a little, I glanced at Megan. She didn't smile. I knew that sometimes Margot could go a little overboard, and I decided that this was one of those times. Well, Margot, you'll have to find some other guy with the right equipment to fix you. Your sister kind of bound me for life." Margot smiled, and a mischievous twinkle appeared in her eyes. "Hey, Megan, could you borrow Matt for a while? I only need it for, say, 4 hours tomorrow. This should help me get through the rest of the week." Megan looked at her sister and smiled. I felt relieved. Well, I felt relieved for a moment, and then everything went downhill. "Of course, Margot. It would be great. You could use him for those 4 hours, and then he could go to Melissa and help her for 4 hours too, and then he would be completely tired and not bug me later in the evening." I was stunned. Although she smiled and joked, I sensed an underlying seriousness that she had never shown before. I've never heard her almost complain about me pestering her for sex. I always thought she was more than willing to join me. I was surprised. I didn't say anything when all the sisters jumped up and started teasing each other and me, but the words in that single line bothered me more than I wanted. Later that evening, I broached the subject with Megan as we were getting into bed. "So you think I'm pestering you too much for sex, Megan?" "No. What gave you that idea, Matt?" "Your comment earlier this evening is what gave me this idea. Remember when you joked with Melissa and Margot about borrowing me and my equipment?" "I was just teasing you, Matt. Don't be so sensitive." "Well, you've never done this before. I always thought that you liked our sex and how often we had it. If I push you too hard, you can always tell me you're not interested. The last thing I want is for you to feel like you have to have sex with me." "That's not true, Matt. You know it. I like having sex with you. In fact, I wish we had sex more often than we do now. Of course, we have to work for a living, so sometimes it rains at this parade. But honestly, I was just teasing. I love having sex with you every time we do it. I always do this." Well, sometimes people don't always say what they mean and try to express it through teasing or other means. It sounded like one of those things to me. Like maybe you're tired of having sex so often. "Matthew, please." I was just teasing. I think our sex life is great. "What's bothering you anyway?" There was a hint of anger in her voice, but there was concern on her face. "I think maybe something is going on with Melissa and Rick. You girls don't let me know what this is, and I know it's serious. You know I don't like secrets like that. I guess I'm afraid that all this will spread to our marriage too." "Oh, honey, it's just girl talk, really. Melissa and Rick are having some problems right now. That happens. Yes, it's serious, but we think they'll sort it out soon." "Yes?" "Yes. Melissa is just being... okay. Melissa. She's never been this open with her feelings and stuff. If it were Margot or me, you'd know all about it, but Melissa is just shy right now. She's afraid that you'll hear our conversation and feel like you need to take sides. And she doesn't want you and Rick to fight over it. There's really nothing special about it." She moved closer and hugged me tightly. I accepted what she told me as the truth because I had no other choice. And yet, no matter how serious the circumstances seemed, I wondered what was really going on with them. I trusted Megan, so I knew that no matter what it would all work out for the best in the end. What bothered me was her comment that Melissa was afraid that Rick and I would fight. We had never been that close, so I wasn't sure what kind of disagreement we could have had under the circumstances. This conversation was largely forgotten about a week or so later. We went back and forth Christmas shopping and were busy with our normal lives. Then came the cut. It was a small thing in the grand scheme of things, but what she was screaming at me really began to awaken me to what was happening. Megan was helping me in the kitchen Thursday night and cut her finger while cutting potatoes for dinner. We cleaned the wound and found it was a small cut, so I covered it with a Band-Aid. It was one of those cuts that you'd forget about in a day or so, but hurt in the meantime. The next morning after she got out of the shower, I looked at her, seeing a thin line between her first and second knuckle. The scabs showed the beginning of the healing process. Just in case, she applied another bandage and got to work. I was busy all day, and it was a hell of a Friday for me. If it had been the 13th, I would have thought it was a typical bad day. It was Friday the 16th day in December, not too far until Christmas. The sisters were visiting. We played a board game and just had a nice family evening. We all had fun and laughed about things in general. I noticed that all three sisters had bandages on the same fingers in the same place. I made a comment about triplets and how strange it must be for them. I received stares and crazy looks from not only Megan, but also from her sisters. I knew if I kept talking like that, I would get in trouble with Megan, so I let him die, a rather sudden death. I seemed to be the only one interested in the fact that all three of them had cut the same finger in the same place within a day of each other. At one time or another, the two sisters would go away and talk for a few minutes. I figured it was all about Melissa and Rick and their problems, so I didn't think much of it. Later, as we were getting ready for bed, Megan decided to take a quick shower. When she came out, I noticed that the patch had disappeared. Looking at her hand, I didn't see a cut. No scab, no red spot, nothing. Megan caught me looking at her hand and turned away as if she had forgotten something. She immediately had a patch. She came back with one on her finger and nothing was said. I was concerned, but it faded into the background for a while. Also, I could have been mistaken about which finger was cut. I just took a quick glance. Thursday was also the day I decided I was starting to go crazy. For us, it started around bedtime. I was so stunned that I simply could not collect my thoughts. I felt like I was in the Twilight Zone or something. The sisters finished making holiday gifts for their parents and my parents, kitchen utensils for cooking and baking that they packed. We joked and laughed, teasing each other, and it was a good evening. Megan took a shower and removed the bandage, only this time I saw a thin red line and what looked like a white mark where her finger had been cut. But it was at a different angle than the original cut. I was sure of it. A cut that appeared and then disappeared, but then reappeared at a different angle. I was going crazy. I didn't tell her anything about it, but suddenly I became suspicious about certain things. I knew deep down that something was seriously wrong here. There was too much going on around me that I didn't notice. It seemed like I needed to start keeping track of what was happening. That's for sure. Over the next week, I figured out how to start figuring out what was going on. I used the parent method, and it ended up being pretty easy. The only way parents could tell them apart when they were babies was the only way I could too, and it worked. Too good. Every time we had sex, at some point I would put Megan in the doggy-style position and, while doing it that way, I would mark her with a marker. You know, those little permanent markers you buy at the grocery store? I bought a pack of them that came in 5 colors. I started with black. It was difficult to hide the marker beforehand, but then I came across a small protrusion on the corner post of our bed that held the box securely, and at the same time was out of sight. Each time, as I said, I marked Megan on her back between her shoulder blades, where her bra strap covered her. I was careful to place these dots, and my main concern was that Megan would not see or feel me doing it. Or she smelled the marker when I opened it. I found that doing something like this during sex was harder than I thought. It took a few tries before I plucked up the courage to actually make that first point. It was not easy to do this quickly and still leave a sufficient trace. Having the fan running helped as it immediately removed the smelly air from us. I've been updating my marks all week. I noted that the shower did not wash them off, so I knew the marks would remain for a few days or more after application. By Saturday evening, the marks had disappeared. They disappeared and Megan acted strangely again. All the time we were married, these strange things happened, and I chalked it up to Megan's volatile personality, or just to life. Saturday night, not a single mark on her back or between her buttocks. Nothing. I took out a green marker and made a small dot between her shoulder blades and in the same place on her butt. Again, over the next week, the marks remained, and I updated them. Then, on Friday evening, the marks disappeared again. Now I knew that whoever had ever been in bed with me was not whoever I had been in bed with the night before, or even the week before, and the weirdness started again. Red became the color of choice that night, and remained so in the days that followed. Then, the following Tuesday, the woman in bed with me developed 2 small, faint black dots, right where I had placed them 2 weeks before. Christmas has come and gone. Rick moved out from Melissa, and they were in the process of getting a divorce. Nobody talked to me, especially Rick. Megan didn't say anything, she just changed the subject whenever I started talking about it. I know I should have said something, but I waited. I hoped that what I found would only happen once. This was not the case. The marks changed approximately every week. Black, green, and then red. Everything is like clockwork. There would be some weeks that would be shorter, like just 4 days, but then there would be some that would be longer, like 8 or 9 days. They were never equidistant from each other, but there was a weekly difference in the scheme of things. Of course, I was surprised. Why? I also wondered why sisters play a game like this with their husbands. I knew that having sex with each of them was something I had never seriously thought about, but apparently that's what I was doing. I didn't know how long it would last, but nevertheless, I got all 3 sisters. A man's dream has come true, right? Well, I wasn't sure what I wanted, but I knew that I went into marriage thinking that I loved Megan and that she loved me. Obviously, something else was going on at some point. I was torn apart. On the one hand, I wanted to confront Megan, but I had no way of knowing which one was Megan. On the other hand, I didn't want to ruin my marriage to Megan, even if it meant going into the twilight zone. I let it continue until New Year's and then decided I'd had enough. One evening, it was Thursday, Megan and I were getting ready for bed. When she came in, I was lying on the bed in my pajamas. This was the first time for me. I usually slept naked. "What happened, Matt? Why aren't you undressed? I was just wondering who you are tonight." She stopped dead in her tracks and looked like a deer in headlights. What?" I said, "I was just wondering who you are tonight." "Melissa, Margot, maybe my legal wife, Megan. I'd really like to know who exactly I'm going to share a bed with tonight." "You won't get anything if you keep this up, mister. I'm not sure where you got this stupid idea about me sharing you with my sisters, but I'm your wife, Megan." "What the hell is going on with you, Matt?" She decided to say it in an angry voice. I guess an angry response has worked in the past, but not now, at least not in this situation. "Come back." "What?" She was confused. First I blamed them for switching places, and then suddenly I asked her to turn around. Why should I turn around? "I need to see something on your back." Megan, or whoever she turned out to be. I saw small black marks. Black. Black? Yes, black. You see, last Friday night you had red marks, and then on Saturday they turned black. I bet they will turn green tomorrow or Saturday. Confusion was written all over her face. There was fear in her eyes. Then came understanding. "You talked to Rick, didn't you?" "No, absolutely. He doesn't want to talk to me and I haven't even seen him. I did this little experiment myself. However, I really don't like the results I got. What this means could mean the end of us. If there ever really was a U.S. Megan, or Melissa, or Margot, or whoever you are." "How do you know?" "At first it was hairstyles. It was a sudden change in you. At least one of you. You used your... Sorry. I'm forgetting myself, Megan. You used your credit card for a haircut on the Friday after Thanksgiving. The arraignment date was 5 days after her haircut. I called them about it and they told me that Megan had gotten her haircut the day before on Tuesday. I saw Megan with her new haircut last Friday. Then further investigation showed me that Margot got her haircut on Tuesday. Melissa got her hair done on Thursday. I watched her face, mostly her eyes. I could see the acceptance of my theory there, and that told me a lot. It also made me braver as I moved on. You all got your hair done by the same hairdresser. So I went and talked to her. She was helpful in finding out that our credit card may have been compromised and even looked up haircut records. Megan allegedly used her credit card on Thursday. I'm still not sure who I slept with that week, but now I know it couldn't have been my wife. That is, my legal wife. This means nothing. I paid for Melissa's haircut and let her use my card. So what? She raged, trying to escape from under my accusation. She didn't realize that she had misunderstood who had the haircut using her card. That Tuesday, it wasn't Melissa, it was either Megan or Margot. Well, then there was a finger. Finger? Yes, Megan, or whoever it was, cut her finger. I washed it and put a Band-Aid on it. And then you all showed up with Band-Aids. Except the one who got into bed with me that weekend didn't have a cut under the bandage. This amazed me, but what came later amazed me even more and pretty much built it all up in my mind. The incision has changed the angle of inclination, and this, my dear, is impossible. So, what about the colored markings? After the cut disappeared and then reappeared, I became quite suspicious, as you can imagine. I started marking who I was with during the week with a colored marker. First it was black, then green, and finally red. You're black. Red was here last week, and I suspect green will be, or rather should have been, next week. Matthew. You know I love you. I can't really explain all of this on my own. I need us all to sit down and talk. Please. I wish I knew that. I mean, you love me. I don't even know who the hell you are. Which one are you? I'm Megan. Oh, that calms me down. How will you ever prove this to me? There was a challenge, and at the same time some confusion in her gaze. I can prove it. I married you more than 3 years ago. I was the one. Oh, damn. I really can't prove anything at all. Now all I saw on her face was worry. I also saw her realize that she really couldn't prove to me who she was at this point. Yes, it is a fact. You see, Melissa was married to Rick. All these years, Margot was lonely and had different boyfriends almost weekly. All this means is that Melissa and Megan were married, but Margot was wild and often had different men. Tell me, was Margot ever going to get married? Of course not. You two were having fun with every man you could get your hands on under the guise of Margot. And this is not counting the 2 official husbands for the 3 of you. That's what it's all about, isn't it? The 3 of you arranged it so that you each had the best of all worlds. This is not the way we wanted it to be. Margot didn't have sex with all these men all the time like you think. You have to understand. I just have to understand that the woman I married a little over 3 years ago is not the woman I took her for. I don't know her. I can't tell her apart from her sisters, so whatever they say, I'll have to live with it. 3 women who lied, whored, cheated, and stole from me. It's not like that, Matt. We didn't steal. You were never denied anything. Yes, sure. I was denied the love of the only woman I love. I was living a lie perpetrated by the triplets. Since when did Rick and I switch weekly? How long? Have you been doing this since high school? How can you live with yourself? Lies, fraud, all of it. It's not like that, Matt. We love you. We all love you. You are our lover, our friend, our husband. Rick let us do this until you showed up. Since then, things have become more complicated. I think he didn't like coming face to face with you, knowing that you didn't know what was going on and treating whoever we were, Megan, that week with all your wonderful love. He knew. Did Rick know? Did he know all this time? Listen, I need to bring my sisters here. We all have to deal with this. Most likely, this is no longer possible. I just stopped. Suddenly, I wasn't even sure which sister I was talking to. I just didn't know. Perhaps I should have named them the Borg, after the Star Trek characters who had a hive mind and were so destructive. Honey, I'm Megan. I really am Megan. This will be hard for you to understand, Matt. I'm afraid that I, may have lost you now. Oh my God. This was not how things should have turned out. Damn Rick for being jealous and leaving. Crap, crap, crap. I think I deserve some respect, Megan. I figured this out without Rick's help. It took me a while to realize all this, and, of course, even to suspect something was wrong. But Rick had nothing to do with it. Really? Yes. I didn't know anything about Rick, or that he knew about it. I was simply surprised by the haircuts, and then by the episode with the cut finger. The markers only confirmed my worst fears. Later, when all 3 sisters were sitting opposite me in the kitchen, I saw that they were indeed identical. Of course, I had noticed this before, but now knowing that I had sex with all 3 of them and couldn't tell them apart, I was really in trouble. I started our conversation because they were being unusually quiet. So, I think I should start all over again. How long? And why did you do this? They all started talking, but then the one in the middle put her hands on the other's hands, stopping them. Taking a quick glance at each sister, she answered, Matt, we know this is a big surprise for you. We never meant to hurt anyone, especially you. Honestly. As for how long have we been doing this? All our lives. Your whole life? Yes. It started when we were children. We would do everything together. Play, get in trouble, sleep, all that stuff. We discovered puberty together. We discovered masturbation together. We discovered boys together. We discovered love together. At the same time, I noticed that they were all looking at me. I suddenly felt the hairs on my neck stand on end as a feeling washed over me. I suddenly felt uncomfortable in my own home. You are triplets, of course. You all developed at about the same time. It goes beyond that, Matt. At a young age, when we first dealt with boys, we discovered that if we kept each of us separate, we could work things out between us. I was confused by this. What? Of course, you kept each other separate. Each of you is human. Triplets, but still each of you is an individual in your own way. Yes, that's true. But that's not what I meant, Matt. You see, Margot has always been a wild child. Megan is a normal, good kid, and Melissa is studious and simple. Yes? I was confused that she stated the obvious. That's how it should be, right? Something like that. You see, we are all Margot. We are all Megan, and we are all Melissa. Stunned, I was sure that I had not caught her intention. You mean that you are triplets? And as such, no. I mean, we've all been Margot or Megan or Melissa at different times throughout our lives. My confusion must have been quite obvious to them because all three of them looked at each other. The one in the center began the story. Megan would become Margot, I would become Melissa, and Melissa would become Megan. We would switch for a day or a week. This last phrase was accompanied by the gaze of all three directed at me. A week? Do you mean we have been changing all this time? Why do we need to stop doing it now? Yes. We've all gotten into bed with you 1 week at a time, Matt. This is where the problems with Rick started. He found out that we love you. He felt deceived. Before this, he knew about our exchange and treated it calmly. Then you came along, and while he didn't really want to share, he knew he couldn't say a single word about what we were doing without opening a huge can of worms. He smirked at your ignorance. Did he know before? Before Megan and I were dating? We've all met you, Matt. We were constantly changing. It became a natural thing for us. I don't understand. Why was Rick so upset then? Because he knew we all fell in love with you, Matt. I don't understand. Of course we love each other. We're family and all that. I love Megan, and you are her sisters. Take Megan's hand, Matt, right now. Show your true love, and take her hand in yours. I started to reach out and suddenly realized something. I really didn't know which one was Megan at all. My indecision got to me. Do you see? You can't because you're not sure which one of us is Megan. We could tell you it was any one of us and you would have absolutely no way of knowing whether we were telling the truth or not. So why is Rick suddenly so upset? Because he found out that we loved you. I haven't figured it out yet. I guess I was having a rough day or something, but I missed the point of her words. You could tell by the way they all looked at each other strangely. Oh God, he doesn't understand this. This was said by the one to my left. I guess we should have seen this coming. It came from the one on the right. They all looked at each other and then said in unison, Matt, we love you. The way they said it all together was creepy. Hearing them say it at the same time was almost too much. I finally understood what they were getting at. Oh, damn. Oh my gosh. Crap. I put my head in my hands, feeling a strong pressure from the realization of what they were telling me. They loved me. They all loved me. Why? No, this is wrong. My confusion showed through my words, so eventually I just shut up to collect my thoughts. I wanted to understand how this could happen, but now I knew it, didn't I? Then I wanted to ask why they did this not only to me but also to Rick, but I also knew this answer. I was upset, but not sure why. I wanted to get angry, but I couldn't even do that. Then I remembered something that really made me angry. But there is also Margot. All this time, Margot dated other men. Margot was free of the three of you. So if I hadn't figured this out, how long would I still be sharing my wife with Margot's boys? Supposedly all three of you love me so much. How could you do this to me? Constantly cheat on me at every opportunity, without fear that I will find out about it. They were smart enough to look damn guilty. My statement also started an argument between them. I knew it. You didn't listen to me. Oh no. Margot should continue to behave normally. She should keep getting boyfriends. This is part of our cover. You both forced this on me. I didn't want to do this at all, but you kept pushing and pushing. Hey, you liked it too. We all decided that Margot had to be herself to maintain the status quo. Yeah, well, you definitely should have done a better job of keeping Rick in line. Letting him know you fell in love with Matt was the straw that broke the camel's back, and now look where we are. You can't blame me for this, sister. You also spent every third week with him. No, he's my husband. Of course, I love there's more of him than Rick. He's our husband, darling. We shared it all this time. You can't claim it alone. Plus, we've all become more cautious about dating week. Very few men have gone past first base with Margot since we fell in love with Matt. I met him first. He was the first to ask me out. I fell in love with him first. You didn't do this. I did it. The one in the middle quickly jumped up. Oh, hell no. I love him, and I loved him first. I listened up to this point, and then I realized that I had to return to the topic of conversation. They were starting to drive me crazy. Each of them argued about who loved me first. Stop. Listen to yourself. You are fighting over one guy. You've all been part of this mess all along, that's obvious. I was kept in the dark for as long as possible. I never suspected. You three are great. Very good. I never had a clue until recently. But we really love you, Matt. I love Megan. She is my wife, and I love her. Again. Which one of us is she? Every time it came up, I lost. I knew it. They knew it. And as far as they were concerned, I had no choice but to give in. And I have a question. Few men. How much is that? 5, 10, 50? For all these years. The best way to fix this would be to get a divorce. Then I could find myself some lonely, pretty woman who would have no sisters at all. Maybe this will fix everything? I didn't expect the looks I received. All three of them looked shocked. It was as if I hit them all at the same time with all my strength. Matt, you can't mean that. Please tell me you don't mean that. It came from the one to my left. She was the only one who spoke, and for some reason it gave me hope for my marriage. The other two sat stunned, but the one to my left, she spoke first and firmly. Megan? Maybe. Megan? I looked to the left, at the one who spoke. All three answered as one. Yes. Damn it. I love Megan. I only love Megan. I care about Melissa and Margot, but I only love Megan. Matthew, dear, if we don't tell you, you'll never know which of us is which. We have been changing for many years. You never knew until now, and until now it wasn't a problem. We all love you, so why can't you accept it and not change anything? Then we'll have some bigger problems to solve. For example, while Megan, my legal wife, was pretending to be Margot, she was cheating on me with other men, consciously and senselessly. I wouldn't say it's pointless, Matt. Again to my left. Well then, how can you explain that deception means nothing? It was to protect us, Matthew. You had more than a little to do with this. We decided that we had to keep up appearances. It all ended in compromises that we didn't like, but we had no choice. Besides, Margot wasn't that active with other men, despite how it looked. If Margot had stopped dating and Melissa had left Rick, then you would have known almost immediately. We knew you couldn't handle it. The one at the center, in my mind right now, was Melissa. I was pretty sure the one on my left was Megan, which meant the one on my right was Margot. I couldn't prove it, mind you, but deep down, that's what I felt. Do you three have any idea how bad this is? I mean, spend your whole life exchanging personalities like this? Can you even be sure which of you is bigger? You all say you love me, and yet you all lied, cheated, and cheated behind my back like it was some sick game with you. Oh yeah, we know who is who among us. It's always been like this. We can keep ourselves separate from others in our minds, if that's what you're worried about. We're not that crazy. Don't ask me to believe this argument. Everything I learned today is crazy. How do we deal with this now? Or maybe I should go and start dating other women. How would that be normal for you? This won't be a new betrayal of my wife. Anyway, I already had 2 mistresses. What options do we have other than me divorcing Megan and riding off into the sunset alone? I said this to shock them. Let them think that I was ready to leave and live my own life. Am I ready, you ask? I did not know. It would be much easier to get up and leave right now than to stay there and try to find some solution. I was already out of my mind, so I decided that I had no choice but to try to find this solution. Their ideas shook me to the core. Our options? It's simple. You're married to Megan. Melissa and Margot have an online business, as does Megan. You will find a job in another city. We'll all move. We will buy a house outside the city with few or no neighbors. One of us will go into town every day for shopping and all that. The other two will run the business online. You will never need company or love. We'll take care of you, Matthew. You will have more love than you will ever know what to do with. Change jobs? I like my job. I like it exactly where I am. Together we can love and live happily ever after, Matt. Here. Well, we could probably come up with something, but it would be much more difficult. Plus, Margot and Melissa's little business is starting to become a real big business. Someday soon, we will all be able to retire and live off of it. Looking at all three of them, I finally realized what I should know. One way or another. I should have known. Megan. And only Megan. This is for you. How do you feel about this? Silence. All three of them stared at their hands without even looking at me. I desperately wanted to know and understand how they could do this and be like this, but if they weren't willing or able to give up that little bit, what was the point? First, I had to find out what Megan, the real Megan, thought. Before I even knew what to think, suddenly I felt someone's foot on my shin. On my left shin. The rubbing up and down was gentle, but with an intensity that spoke volumes. Megan? I spoke to all three, hoping against hope that one of them would speak up. Still nothing but silence. The rubbing became more severe. I knew this until the one on my right started rubbing against my other leg in the same way. Then the one in the center put her foot between my legs. I needed to get some space between me and them. You are all asking me to change radically from the way I was raised and taught. What you want to do is also illegal in every state. I need to think about it a little before I make a choice. I'm going to leave and check into a local motel for a few days. You're all staying here. I mean it. Margot especially needs to stay here. I'll make a decision as quickly as I can, but you've given me a lot to think about. They did not argue with me, although I saw worry and fear on their faces. I packed my suitcase for a few nights, and when I left, all three of them were standing at the door excitedly. Please stay here. You can sleep in the master bedroom and we'll stay in the other bedrooms, Matt. Please stay with us instead of leaving like this. Actually, I need to be away from all of you for a while. Until I return with my decision, you all must, of course, remain celibate. If I catch any of you on a date with another man or men, that will be the end. One of them opened the door for me while the other two kissed my cheeks at the same time. The one holding the door came out and hugged me tightly, whispering in my ear, "Matt, I love you. If you want, we can leave just the two of us. Anywhere, any place you want. I cannot lose you. I just cannot. You should have thought about all this when we were dating and first getting married, Megan, or whoever you really are." The look in her eyes told me a lot. It wasn't Megan. Her gaze darted into the living room through the open door. I couldn't make out which of them she looked at, but that was enough for me to understand that it was not my wife. You see, I can't trust any of you right now. Neither of you. You've made a huge mess, bigger than any Pandora's box. To tell you the truth, I don't think I can handle this at all. Being with all three of you was never on my mind. I married one girl. Not for all three. My louder voice caused the other two to rush to the door. All three shed tears, begging me not to leave. As I got into the car, I looked around and felt something strange squeezing my heart. It was as if I was being strangled. From the inside. I ran into Rick a few nights later. When I approached the bar, he stood up as if he was about to leave. "You leave, I will follow you. I'll follow you to hell, bastard. All the way there with the bells on and a bucket of water in my hand. We're going to talk and you're going to answer my questions. Just drop it, dude. You win, I'm leaving, and I will never tell anyone about these three, ever. You knew all this time and never let me know about it? You do not understand. When I met Melissa, there was no other man around. I was him. When I discovered what they were doing, at first I was crazier than hell, but then I realized that it was all benefiting me, so what? So what? Damn it, dude. You're married to one of them and they're all using you. This is wrong on every level. Animals do this. Animals have one male who breeds the entire herd all the time. I also want to remind you that they started this, not me. When I found out about this, they reassured me and made me realize how lucky I was. Then you show up, Matt. What do I have to do with this? The most important. Melissa fell in love with you, and so did Margot. Megan was head over heels in love with you on your first date. I kind of figured this out when my sex life started to drop off here and there. Pretty soon I was getting about the same as any normal married man. Once or twice a week, 3 times in a good week. You, on the other hand, were getting sex almost every night, several times a night, if I understood their conversations, which I overheard. Are you saying that all this time you knew what they were doing, not only to you, but also to me, and you agreed with it? Hey, they're beautiful women if you haven't noticed yet. They are also identical triplets. If I told you, you would never believe me, and they might do something drastic to stop me from spilling the beans. How was I supposed to know what they would do? I mean, they are different in every way from any other woman you have ever met. I highly doubt they will harm you or me, Rick. Yes, I believed that I was married to one of them, and not to all 3. I thought they loved me. Until you showed up. I don't think I ever understood them at all. You, on the other hand, have already done it. 3 wives, 3 lovers, just 3, and you stand here and are angry with me. Have you completely won their hearts and gone so far as to leave them because of it? You have no idea how lucky you really are, Matt. If only they loved me half as much as they love you. His passion was coming out, and I saw the pain in his eyes. He couldn't finish the sentence. They rejected him for me. They fell in love with me, but not as much as they fell in love with him. If they were in love at all. I could understand why he would be upset. I just couldn't understand why he was upset with me. Until recently, I was innocent of all this. I'm sorry, Rick. I never knew. I never knew they were doing this. If I had known earlier. What? Would you leave them? I highly doubt it. Eventually, they would switch you to their way of thinking. Now I know that what they felt for me was similar to lust. Or perhaps lust. What they feel for you is true love, Matt. I see it. They can feel it. Why can't you? I'm leaving here. Unless you still want to break my head. I just stood there and watched him go into the night. What could I say? His argument was accurate, to say the least. I knew they loved me. I felt it in my heart. I knew I loved them too. But it was all wrong. Confused, I returned to the bar and drank until late into the night. Drunker than I had been in a long time, I stumbled back to my motel room, barely able to move on the sidewalk. In my drunken state, I tried to focus on what I was feeling, what I thought and what I knew. Of course, a drunk never really thinks as straight as he thinks he does, and in the morning, in addition to having a hell of a hangover, I was even more confused about my situation. I spent the next 5 days simply avoiding everyone I knew. I went to work and then to the motel. I spent my nights with drinks and bartenders, wondering if I would sleep better or not. Usually it was or not. One evening I called them and made an appointment to talk to them. It was a difficult call because the person I spoke to was crying the entire time. Hello, this is Matt. I think we all need to talk. I've been thinking about something this past week, and I hope you 3 have too. Oh, Matt, please. Yes. We'll be here. I'll cook dinner. We'll cook dinner. We really need to talk to you. I love you, Matt. We all love you. At the moment, she looked nothing like either of the sisters. Her thoughts came out of her mouth in complete disarray. I could feel her tension over the phone. Tension and despair. Well, this is what we need to talk about, you know. This thing is with love. I'm not happy about what you 3 did to me, but I also know that I love one of you more than life itself. So I'm stuck in the middle of a mess that I never had anything to do with. I don't know if things can be fixed, but I know we really need to talk about this. We will have dinner ready. How about 6 tomorrow night? 6? I think it's okay. I'll be there at 6. I hung up before saying anything else. I almost cried when I heard her on the phone. I knew I couldn't tell which one she was, and that she was as upset as any of them had ever been. Dealing with this was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. At 6 o'clock the next evening, I parked, mustering the courage to enter what had once been my home. I felt like a stranger. It was surreal because right outside that front door was the woman I loved, in 3 copies. The door opened quickly at my first knock. "Matt, we're glad you came." They were all there. If I didn't know them, it would be quite scary. They were very nicely dressed. Not exactly sexy, but very beautiful. I could see that they had prepared carefully, and they all looked exactly the same. I won't stand a chance, will I? A look of confusion appeared on their faces. What do you mean? Yeah, what do you mean by that, Matt? We will give you every chance and hope you will do the same for us. We love you, Matt. Please let us prove it to you. All 3 expressed their opinions. You're all dressed exactly the same. I can't tell you apart, and you know it. Oh, we wanted everything to be equal. Whatever happens tonight is important to you, and we know it. We thought that if we all looked the same, it would be easier for you to cope. Or are you hiding behind the trick that I don't know which of you is which? I turned to leave. I was offended and angry. I was attacked by a gang, and they obviously had no intention of giving up their way of life. I was grabbed and dragged back inside. I heard the door slam and the lock click. Okay, Matt, then we'll do it your way. One of them began to undress, and the rest followed suit. Soon I saw all 3 sisters naked. They lined up in front of me, and then they all turned around. Reds, black, green. The marks, lots of dots, were there, right between their shoulder blades, as if I had made them, new and shining bright. Next to each mark was a name written in the same color ink, red. Megan, black, Margot, green, Melissa. Wait a second, I thought the color green was Matt, then we lied. We didn't know how upset you would be. The correct name is now highlighted in the correct color. If everything works out the way we hope, we will always have our colors. On a naked body like this, or in our clothes, our colors will be the dividing factor. You've exchanged everything before. How can I trust you to stand tall, and even more so, how can I be sure of that? These are not marks, Matt. These are tattoos. We finished with them on Monday morning, discussing it between us. They cannot be washed away, erased, or disappear. They are permanent. We knew that you had to have some way of separating us from each other in your mind that would be permanent. Names? No, only dots. If you look closely, we each have a point between our shoulder blades and another one on the front of our bodies, right next to our belly buttons. Do you see? When I looked down at their bellies, I saw large flowers next to their belly buttons. In a way, it was sexy. In another way, it was a reminder. Each flower was made with taste, and each had its own color. No, there was no black flower, only red, green, and blue. I knew I had to make a move. Maybe then let's go to the kitchen and talk. I felt like a space adventurer from the movies. I was taking a huge step into uncharted territory and wasn't sure what the outcome would be. When we entered the kitchen, I grabbed Megan's hand and pulled her close to me. Sitting up, I held her close to me, much to her sister's dismay. Why do you keep Megan close to you, Matt? She's my wife, and I thought I was married to her all this time. But we thought you were going to settle something between us. This is true. I'm going to force you 3 to become individuals. Or if you don't, I'm going to divorce Megan and move on. I know all 3 of you love me, and I know you all think this could work. But I'm not ready for this. I really, really don't know. I've always been a one-woman man, and all this confusion has really driven me crazy. But what will Melissa and I do then, Matt? We love you as much as Megan. We deserve a chance with you too. We can share. From now on, we will only be with you. We can do whatever you want us to do to prove it to you. I don't need your proof. I want Megan. I tried to tell you last night, but you didn't listen. I love Megan. I want Megan. I love you too, but not as much as I love Megan. I saw the pain and hurt on the faces of Melissa and Margot. Megan held my hand tightly as my heart beat faster and faster. I've been thinking about this for the past week and have come to the conclusion that if we move in together, we'll eventually be discovered. Legal and moral issues would be the next big thing on the evening news, just like that Mormon guy who is in trouble right now. I cannot do it. We want you, Matt. We all want you and we will fight to keep you. What about what I want? You all claim to love me so damn much. What about what I want and what I can handle? Don't you see that you are imposing your will on me without giving me a single chance? They all looked at each other with a guilty and sad look that spoke volumes. They knew deep down that what they wanted was not what I wanted, and despite the fears in my own heart, I knew that the only way to make things work was to have only one wife. None of you seem to fully understand my feelings on this matter. I thought I was happily married to Megan all this time. I thought she was faithful and loved me and only me. Now I find out that she really is all of you. I discovered that she slept with other men while married to me, although you all seem to think that what I didn't know wouldn't hurt me. Well, damn. It really hurts. More than a little. I felt Megan's grip on my arm loosen and she began to pull away from me. I saw fear and perhaps pain in her eyes as I finished my comments. In the past, I rarely cursed around any of them. I squeezed Megan's hand tighter and actually pulled her closer to me. I need you three to know that I can only love one woman. To do anything else for me is to cheat on the one I love. Even if the other two agree with what we're doing, I don't. Can't you see that if we tried to do what you want, I would end up lost to all of you? If you hadn't found out, everything would be fine. You've had each of us in turn since you got married. You never seemed to mind back then. You are right about that. But on the other hand, there are marriages and relationships in which the other partner is also not aware that he likes to sleep with others. As soon as he finds out, it doesn't hurt any less, and it's never right. But we all love you, and we all want you to be our Matt. Only Megan can have me. Melissa and Margot, you need to find your soulmates. And I do mean men. Each of you needs your own man, and Megan, if she wants, has her own man. That doesn't mean we'll work out after all this mess, but I'm willing to try to make things right between us, as long as you can, all. Be faithful to each other and to me. This means that you two, Melissa and Margot, need to find your own men and stop trying this exchange trick again. Megan, you will have to be faithful to me and only me, just like I have always been faithful to you in my heart. Now there were tears all around me. They cried and then sobbed when my firm and final choice was made. I knew I had hurt them all deeply, and I wasn't so sure Megan would stay with me after this. Perhaps their bond was too strong for them to accept that I was only with Megan. However, I could only hope that it would be their choice, since my alternative choice would have caused us all even more pain. I am completely ready to divorce Megan and move on with my life, no matter what they may say or do. I wasn't too sure Megan and I could make things right either, but I still loved her, and circumstances showed me that she deserved at least one chance to be the good wife I knew she could be if I would try. I'm going to leave now, and you girls can let me know what you decide later. I need some more time alone, and you need to think things over. I will not be delusional about this, but I am firm. I know being with all three of you could be heaven, but it wouldn't be something I could handle. In the end, we would have broken up anyway. I'll call in a few more days and then we can talk. I drove back to the motel and sat in the dark for a while. I've been arguing with myself about this for days. It was a difficult decision for me, and I really hoped that these three would accept the best offer I made to them. If they hadn't done this, my life would have been miserable for quite some time. I really didn't want to divorce Megan, but I would have if they couldn't accept my terms. I have always been and always will be a one-woman man. Later that night, there was a knock on my door. When I opened it, Megan was standing in front of me. She looked haunted, and her eyes were swollen and red from crying. "Come in, Megan." "How did you know it was me?" "Your color." "Oh, I forgot. What do you want to talk about?" "About us." Okay, I didn't expect her to show up tonight. In fact, I didn't expect any of them to show up at all. I pretty much decided that they would never be able to break away from their regular lives because they had been doing this since they were children. Take a seat. Would you like something to drink? I have some soda or bottled water. Water would be nice. I brought her some water and sat down at the small table opposite her. She looked around the room, anywhere but at me. Finally, I talked to her about why she was there. Okay, you came to me for some reason. This must be important if you've been digging around until you found where I left off. What do you want to say? We talked about ourselves, all of us. Melissa and Margot are hurt deeper than you can imagine, but they both agreed that that I deserve you. And if you take me back, I will be your wife and nothing more. Your wife. No more swapping or switching, no more hiding the truth, and no more lying. Fine. That's not all. Melissa and Margot know that we hurt you more than we ever knew. We never really understood how you felt, as we all thought that you would have thought you had died and gone to heaven if you had all of us. We now know that not only were we terribly wrong, but we also probably ruined some of your love for us. I say we because until recently, you were equally in love with all of us. Don't say you weren't, because you were. You treated each of us exactly the same. You still don't understand it, do you? I treated you the same because until recently I thought I was dealing with my wife, the only person I loved with all my heart. I never knew, and if I had known, there would have been differences. Don't think there wouldn't be. In my opinion, I don't love you all the same, even if you played different games with me and got away with it. In my mind, you were all McGann every time I got into bed with you. I know it. Now we know it. We didn't see it then. And after today and the last few days, we know we were wrong. I want to spend the rest of my life with you, Matt. I want to love you, and I want you to love me. Melissa and Margot want it too, but they realize they'll have to find their own men and make their own love. So, no more switching? Never again. It won't be easy for us, but now we know we were wrong all along. This was a painful lesson for us, and we know Mom and Dad will be surprised to find out how bad we really were. You don't have to tell them. Let it go. The only ones who really know what's going on are you three, Rick and me. Let them have ignorance, and let them think that you are all three good girls. I won't tell anyone, and I'm pretty sure Rick won't tell either. Oh, we thought you might want us to tell everyone about how we've changed and everything. Oh, hell no. First of all, it would put not only the three of you in an awkward position, but the whole family. And me too. Just forget about it, and we'll get on with our lives. Just the two of us. Melissa and Margot can find their own men, and pretty soon, we can all be one big happy family again, without ruining everyone else's thoughts and feelings. It's up to you three and I to really figure this out. Let's not drag others into this mess, okay? Really, you'll be okay if only the four of us know what all this happened to. You won't tell anyone about this? My lips are sealed, Megan. This will be our secret. She jumped up and came over to hug and kiss me. I pulled my chair back and sat her on my lap. Holding her tightly in my lap, I kissed her long and hard. Matt, do you think you could help me out a little here? It's been a long time since I've been with you. I mean, I don't want to pressure you or anything, but I'm completely on edge right now. I was on edge too, and knowing that things were getting better despite what had happened, my little head talked me into letting her have a little fun. Later that night, after some strenuous exercise and lovemaking, Megan looked into my eyes with mischief. What? It was interesting to me. I wonder what. Well, you know that Melissa and Margot will now be looking for their own men. Yes. In the meantime, they'll get really excited, you know. I was wondering, do you think you could take care of them from time to time? You know, just until they find their own men to love? Megan. You what? I'm crazy. Haven't you learned anything? I can't. Just kidding. I was just joking. Can't you understand the joke? Crap. I know you wouldn't do this on purpose. And I also better not do this out of ignorance in the future, if you know what I mean. You won't do this. From now on, you are stuck with me. You understand, of course, that our sex life will probably slow down somewhat. I mean, you'll get tired of loving only me and all? Oh, I don't think I'll be the one to drift down. You won't get the break you once did, and you'll have to put up with me constantly pestering you for sex, I bet. Yes? Oh, yes. I can live with this. I hoped that everything would be fine with us. I really love this woman. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.